Welcome back to the End of the Day show. I'm your host, Matt Parker. Thank you all for listening to the show. It's the fourth day of this experiment I'm running to do a tech news related, startup related show every day. So today, going to keep it brief, focused here. Big week next week coming up as we get into earnings season for a few notable companies. One of the biggest things that I didn't really discover in my startup journey until later is it's really important to understand the dynamics of earnings seasons as it relates to companies that are interrelated with your company. And particularly now, there's a lot of signals and signs you can get from these earnings calls. There's also great sources, right? I think even 5 years ago, it was kind of hard to listen to earnings calls and get the insights. But now with technology, with AI, with all these platforms, you can almost listen and get the snapshots for every earnings call. But to be very specific, what I'm talking about and what I'm looking forward to next week, and shout out to the Earnings Whispers on Twitter or on X. They do a great job of kind of calibrating and giving you a consensus view of what you have to look forward to. So next week, from my perspective, as it relates to technology, we have SoFi on Tuesday. We have AMD on Tuesday as well. We also have Microsoft and PayPal, Pinterest as well. So some big day on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we're thinking about ARM, obviously Meta, Carvana, which has been an insanely phenomenal stock to follow. If you do, it's just been crazy how they've kind of reinvented themselves. Crazy story. I remember this is probably 2 years ago with my company, Modern Tax. This is probably the closest we ever got to like signing a Fortune 500 company. And we were talking with the team at Carvana, and this is like in November. And it like was getting, we had done NDAs, we had signed off. It was going to be a partnership heading into tax season, a new launch for us. It was a financial related project. And just abruptly, everybody I was talking to on their team got laid off. And I looked at the stock and I was like, oh man, this company is like heading towards bankruptcy. And, it did not look good for them at that time. And they have came back roaring over the past year. I mean, this year alone, Carvana is up 173%. I mean, if you look at it over the full year, they're up 205%. Over a 5-year period, they're up over 100%. So it just goes to show no one knows what the hell's going on out here really when it comes to these stocks, but it is very important to follow earning. I mean, they're up over 219% just in the last 6 months. So Carvana is one to like really follow. Again, this is not an investment advice podcast, but it is crazy just to see the amount of numbers they've been putting on the board quite consistently for the better half of the past year and some change. But back into, what we're thinking about with earnings season, you have, those are going to be some big days, Tuesday and Wednesday. And then Thursday, we get into Amazon, we get into Apple, Intel, Coinbase. So it's going to be a very, very eventful week. A lot of announcements are going to be coming from these earnings calls. I really missed the last big push of earnings calls, but I remember at the end of 2023, so much of it, and even with Q1 2024, so much of the earnings call was like AI related. So I'm really interested to listen to these earnings calls to see what is really going to be happening as it pertains to these earnings calls next week with AI, right? Because companies were bullish. They were very excited. They were very driven in the fact that, hey, our whole, business is being driven by AI. And that was the story earlier this year and then late last year. I don't know if that's the story now, right? I don't know if AI is developing and moving as fast as it feels like. And here in like Techland in San Francisco, it feels like every company is an AI company. OpenAI just announced their search product yesterday. It feels like things are moving so fast, but as you get to understand in the enterprise, and I've been trying to sell and selling to enterprise both successfully and unsuccessfully for the past 2 years, it takes a while for these things to move, right? And so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens next week, what companies, what Apple says, what Facebook says. Obviously, Facebook this week launching their new Lambda solution with AI, but how much of their earnings call is going to be about that and about the core business? Similarly, with Microsoft, what are they going to be saying? They're at the top of the top when it comes to that. They're going to have a great insights on what's going on. Obviously, with Amazon, both with their e-commerce business as well as their AWS business. So it'll be a very interesting week next week. There'll be a lot of news. A lot of my stuff and content will be related to these calls and what the trickle down effect is for startups. Because as we jump into the next segment, if you're in the startup ecosystem like myself, and we're getting into the late season, we got to talk about U.S. enterprises and what these 2025 budgets are going to look like, right? This is really important, I think, as it pertains to sales. So Jen Abel, who's a good follow as it pertains to selling to businesses, for startups specifically, she had a great tweet this morning or yesterday talking about U.S. enterprises and what the 2025 budget season is going to look like. Shared services are typical decisions are made July to October. Business units typically make their decisions from September to November. And she notes that this is 60% or more of firms that use a calendar year as their fiscal year. So this is a whole piece, somebody could do a whole case study on how large companies make decisions and budget for things. Because again, as AI becomes a conversation, a lot of companies, and you think about the money that's being made in AI right now, which OpenAI is the best case for who's making the most. Predominantly, most of their money is still being generated on their consumer business, right? People paying $20 a month or whatever they're paying for their monthly subscription. Like I subscribe to Claude, it's $20 a month, right? That's where most of the money is being made today in AI. What's really going to matter is how much of 2025 budget allocation is going to go to these AI companies that are supposedly making things more productive for these large companies. It would make sense that they would be increasing their spend substantially as these products become better and become more fine-tuned. That remains to be seen. But if you're a startup founder, it really shares, and I share this with Victor fundraising as well. There's windows of opportunity for raising money, and there's definitely windows of opportunity for selling to U.S. enterprises. So it's really important to kind of coincide the first piece on earnings season and then understanding the shared service business unit cycles of your industry and who you sell to, because that's going to really determine a lot about what 2025 looks like. And if you're like me, 2025 needs to be a great year across the board to kind of have some recovery for what's been going on the past few years, where budgets have been tight, companies have been downsizing, things are moving slower than faster. So there's a lot of questions to be answered with what's going to happen in regards to a lot of these things. So earnings season, budget cycles for enterprises, all of that stuff is happening in real time next week. So summer is fading away, right? A lot of people are enjoying summer vacation. I'm in an office right now. There's almost nobody in the office. But I think summer is quickly fading away, and people are having to really start to think about what the fall looks like and how are you going to be able to manage and hit your budget and hit your numbers and do everything you need to do as a business, as a company, as an employee, as a contributor. I know the job search market is brutal right now for a lot of people. There's very, very, at least as we think about it from a tech perspective, there is a lot of, I would say, congestion in the market, right? Companies making these decisions, right? Do we go and hire this amount of people when we don't know what 2025 is going to look like from a revenue perspective? So we'll see. So that's kind of it. Last thing I wanted to talk about today was a new company in wealth management. I'm starting to get really into wealth management as a vertical, working on some things that hopefully I can start to announce in the next few months or weeks. as I've been doing my research, came across a company that just announced a $5 million round. This company called Powder. So Powder is building AI agents for precise document analysis, right? A use case primarily in the wealth management space. This team is from Adapar, I believe. The CEO founder spent some time there, or he sold his last company to Adapar. Participated in Y Combinator, had a big launch at the top of the year at a big WealthTech conference, and just announced a $5 million round. This is really, to me, this is the world I live in. Like with both my current company and some things I'm trying to get off the ground, it seems to be such a great opportunity, right? The amount of work that wealth managers, tax preparers, accountants, legal, as you talked about Harvey earlier this week, the amount of work that people have when it comes to, evaluating and analyzing documents, just pure information and documents is quite extreme. And so this is, a good sign.
Welcome to Powder.
While this is an AI product, it's good to see companies and products like this, right? These are like practical products that everyday people within wealth management companies will use to do their job better, to make their job better. So I'm excited to be kind of working on something in this space. If you are familiar with the wealth tech market, would love to connect. But, this Powder company seems to be pretty cool, pretty slick, played around with it. Very good design on the website for the most part. How it works, particularly when you compare it to other products in the market. There's some companies that I won't highlight here that sell to this industry. They don't think too much about the user experience. Very straightforward pricing. They have their testimonials. So looks like this could be a winner, right? The co-founding team, some good investors, really, really good investors as well, right? Y Combinator, GC, Funders Club, L Fund, Liquidity Capital, Pioneer Fund. So this is an interesting company. So I try to highlight a company every time I do this show. Not always got to be a $150 million Series B. It's a $5 million round, but this looks like a solid product that can actually make a difference in a very large market. So that's all for the show today. Hope everybody has a great weekend. We will be back Monday with the end of the day show. I'm your host, Matt Parker. Again, check out all of our content everywhere on social media, Instagram, For Insights. And you can check us out at stretch4.co for anything more about me. I'm out.